Hello everyone! What's up? I'm Andrew, and today I'm going to talk about all the books that I read in January. You guys, I read 10 books in January. That is a lot. That is more than I've ever read in a month, by a long shot. I don't know what happened. Maybe the booktube gods blessed me with their bookish magic, but I'm pretty proud of myself. The first book I read was Boy Meets Hamster by Birdie Milano. This book is about a 14-year-old British boy named Dylan. Dylan really wants to go on some romantic foreign vacation, but every year his parents inevitably take him to a caravan park. He's not very happy about this until he meets a boy at the caravan park who catches his eye. He begins to pursue this other boy, but at the same time, the caravan park's mascot, a huge, fluffy orange hamster, seems to be thwarting all of his romantic efforts, and this hamster seems to have it out for Dylan. You guys, this is such a cute book. I loved it so much. I'm so glad that I started the year off with such a fluffy, happy, light, gay, romantic book. I really liked the way that Birdie Milano writes her characters. They seemed like real teenagers. They talked and acted like the way real teenagers do. And some of what they said was problematic, and I was a little bit worried about that. But there is a lot of character growth and development that happens in this book. I love Dylan, I love his best friend Kayla, she's amazing, and I wound up giving this book 4 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read was The Descent of Monsters by J.Y. Yang. This is the third book in the Tensorate series, which is an Asian-inspired mythological fantasy series. I really loved the first 2 books in this series. The main characters, Akeha and Makoya, were really interesting to get to know, to follow. J.Y. Yang writes really interesting worlds, really interesting characters, and really fun action scenes. This book is about Inspector Chuan. She is an inspector for the Protectorate, which is basically the evil empire in this world. She starts to investigate when some of the main characters of the previous books are involved in suspected criminal activity. This book is told entirely through letters and reports and documents, which is not how the other 2 books in the series were told. I honestly did not like it as much as the other 2 books. I didn't think that Chuan was an interesting enough main character. She portrayed the plot, but I never really fell in love with her like I did with the other characters. However, the events of this story are very interesting, and there were some unexpected twists and turns, so I ended up giving this book 3.5 out of 5 stars. Coming up next on the list is a book that I've been wanting to read for a long time, ever since I very first heard about it, and that is Running with Lions by Julian Winters. This story follows Sebastian, who is the star goalie in his school's soccer team. Sebastian is bisexual, but he has not come out yet. This year, Sebastian's old best friend from childhood, Amir Shah, joins the soccer team unexpectedly. Sebastian and Amir were very close as children, but something happened and they have grown distant. As I'm sure most of you know or can guess, they have a contentious relationship at first, but eventually they start growing closer. This is a really good example of the friends to enemies to lovers trope, which I have not actually read a lot of, and I really enjoyed this one. It was very cute, and I'm so glad that I know about this book thanks to BookTube. I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Next, I read a picture book called Julian is a Mermaid by Jessica Love. This is a very short children's picture book about a boy named Julian who's traveling one day with his abuela, and he sees several women dressed up like mermaids. He is enthralled, and he wants to dress up like a mermaid too. That premise alone made me want to read this story, and while it delivered on being a good children's story about a boy defying traditional gender norms, it didn't really offer me much more than that. I expected more, but it pretty much just does what you expect and nothing else. I didn't really enjoy this a whole lot, but I liked the premise, and I liked that it does break those gender norms, which brought it up from a 2 to a 3 out of 5 stars for me. Up next, I read Volume 1 of The Backstagers, Rebels Without Applause. This is written by James Tynion IV and illustrated by Rian Sygh. It is a comic series from Boombox. This is an incredibly cute comic about a boy who transfers to a new school and joins the stage crew. The stage crew is this whole other magical world, and not just in the metaphorical sense. Literally, there is magic backstage at this school. It is so cute. It is very queer. There are at least 5 gay or bisexual characters. There's 1 trans character. And the relationships in this story, the magic, everything was just so cute, but also the story held my attention the whole time, and it really took me back to when I was doing theater in high school. So it hit me with the cuteness, it hit me with the queer, and it hit me with the nostalgia, and I cannot wait to read the next volume of this, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. Next, I read the book that literally everyone on BookTube was talking about last year. I finally picked it up, even though, just like a lot of other booktubers, it's not the kind of book that I usually read. I read The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. As many of you know, this is a story of Monique, who is called by the aging Evelyn Hugo to write a tell-all book about her life. In this book, Evelyn Hugo was a movie star from the 50s all the way through the 80s, and it tells the story of her life, her choices, and why exactly she had 7 husbands. This book has amazing gay and bisexual representation in it. It is an amazing story of one woman's life, of her love, and there is so much amazing stuff going on in this book, but I can't tell you about most of it because that would be spoilers, and I'm really frustrated by that, but you need to go pick this book up, no matter what kind of books you normally read. It is wonderful, amazing, BookTube was right, it's awesome. Evelyn is just such an interesting character, and I just don't even have words to express how much I love this book. I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars. After Evelyn Hugo, I read In an Absent Dream by Seanan McGuire. This is the 4th book in her Wayward Children series, and I really liked every book in that series, but honestly, I didn't know what to expect going into this. This is a story about Lundy, who is a character that we meet in the very first book. This is the story of the world that she went to, what she experienced there, and what led to her coming back to our world. As a child, Lundy is whisked away to the Goblin Market. It is a world of fantastical people and magic, but also of very strict rules. This, however, suits Lundy just fine, as she is quite the rule follower herself. She meets friends and mentors there in the Goblin Market, but it also comes into conflict with her life at home in our world. Lundy has to make some very difficult decisions and go through some very difficult things. As always with Seanan McGuire, this book is beautifully written, and just reading this book made me feel like I was in a magical world. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. Up next, I read the first graphic novel of The Adventure Zone, Here There Be Gerblins. This is based on the Adventure Zone podcast by the McElroys brothers and their father, where they play D&D and their characters get up to hilarious shenanigans. I had actually not listened to the podcast before I read this book. My friend Charlie lent it to me. Thank you, Charlie. And I liked it actually a lot more than I was expecting. This is just fun and silly. It's entertaining, and it's a really light, happy read. And it inspired me to listen to the podcast, which I am now doing and enjoying immensely. This is the story of the characters Magnus, Merle, and Taco. They go on quests, they find magical items, they kill some people, and it's just a really fun D&D campaign written in graphic novel form, which I really liked. This got 3.5 out of 5 stars from me. Next, I read a book that I first heard about from Spencer at the channel Common Spence, and it is Timekeeper by Tara Sim. This book is set in a steampunk fantasy world where large clock towers throughout England and the world control the flow of time in their respective cities. Mechanics are people who have magical powers and who are able to repair the clock towers to keep time running smoothly. Danny is one of the youngest mechanics ever, and when he is assigned to a new clock tower, he starts noticing some weird things. Eventually he meets someone who thought only existed in myth, and that is the spirit of the clock tower. He and this clock spirit grow closer, and a romance begins to develop. However, at the same time, someone is doing damage to clock towers, and Danny begins to fear for not just the clock spirit, but for time itself. This is a really great gay romance fantasy. I liked it a little bit more than I was expecting, actually, and I think I need to read more steampunk after this. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. The last book that I read in January is Estranged by Ethan M. Aldridge. This is another graphic novel. It is about 2 boys who were swapped at birth. One is a Fey changeling, and one is a human child that was taken to the Fey Kingdom. When the Fey Kingdom comes under attack, the child and the Fey changeling Edmund must join forces and try to stop this evil from spreading. This is a really good book. There is a prominent side character who is genderless, and this was a beautifully painted book. It was all watercolor, and the story kept me interested from page to page. I ended up giving this 3.5 out of 5 stars. Well, there you have it. That is my gigantic January wrap-up. Let me know in the comments what books you've read in January and what you thought of them. And I will see you guys in another video very soon. Bye!